Welcome, Greek U Nation, to episode number 502 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Ayalon, CEO of Greek University. I'm a speaker and an author. Our fifth book just came out. It's called Perseverance and How to Be a Great Fraternity or Sorority Alumnus. So go and pick up that book on Amazon or Barnes & Noble today. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there is nothing like great food to bring college students together. Fun fact, I travel so often as a speaker on college campuses all over the country, and I'm either staying in hotel rooms or I'm staying at an Airbnb location all of the time. I often wonder about these hidden spy cams that I see around and just how often am I really being monitored? So, we have a guest on the show today that I think is going to be able to give us some more information on this topic. So, let's get started. Jocelyn King is a sought after executive coach and confidant to celebrities, entrepreneurs, working moms and dads, and college graduates. Those she has coached on all 7 continents have found greater meaning, fulfillment, and joy in their lives using her simple, powerful Get CLEER method. She earned her BS degree from the University of San Francisco and her MBA from St. Mary's College of California over 16 years as a working single mom. From her work as a business executive and co-founder, she was twice named a top 20 woman to watch and awarded top 10 woman in her field among dozens of other accolades. Jocelyn is an inspirational speaker at conferences, corporate meetings, and associations when not advising international leaders, inspiring audiences, and coaching people who want more out of their lives. She is fulfilling her childhood dream of visiting every country depicted in Disneyland's Small World ride. She divides her time between Silicon Valley, LA, and Las Vegas with her partner and her fur babies. Welcome to the show, Jocelyn.
Oh, thank you, Michael. It is so great to be here with you and your wonderful audience. I love college audiences. It's so great to be here with all of you.
Me too. I am totally into the college students. Anything 18 and above is great for me. Like K to 12, forget it. I'm like done. I'm like, I can't deal with you. But once they get to college, I just feel like there's so much you can do there. They have so much great information. All they need is just a little push, a little direction, and they can just go off and do amazing things on their own. So I love that. I think
Yes,
that's
there's
great.
so much brilliance and power. And in fact,
Mhm.
I've lived many places in my life, but I'm always in a university town. I once tried living outside of a university town, and the whole dynamic was different because let's face it, the universities and particularly all the brilliance and the energy of the college students themselves are what make it youthful and vibrant and forward reaching and let's do the impossible. And I'm addicted. I can't be far away from that.
I agree with you completely. There's nothing quite like working on a college campus. It's just got some great energy to it. Now, speaking of college, you decided on the University of San Francisco for your undergraduate experience. So tell our audience, why did you choose the University of San Francisco?
Well, for a couple of reasons. It's funny. So I grew up in Southern California and kind of called LA, Laguna Beach, and Santa Barbara home. My family moved a lot. And my parents, my dad had a PhD and from he'd gone to Temple University for his undergrad and then Princeton, and then did postdoctoral work at USC. But for a variety of reasons, including my parents having some health problems and being older, um, I was not set up to go to school. My dad drove me over to Scripps College in Southern California, and I walked around the campus. I was like, oh, I want to go here. But and maybe there's some people out there listening to me who can relate to this a little bit, but I didn't have anybody shepherding me through. I didn't have a high school counselor telling me how to get in. In fact, I wanted to be a physicist, an astrophysicist. And I moved in schools in high school, and and Trig was full, so they just pulled me out of math for a year. So I'm a huge STEM advocate now because getting a year behind in math as a young teenage girl who wants to go into astrophysics made that was going to be way too hard. And so I did not even know how to apply to college. I didn't know. I also thought you had to know exactly what you wanted to do with your life in order to figure out what degree. And while that while there's some truth to that, you want to have a direction. I didn't realize that you could join and then switch majors. I did not understand college at all or how to get in. And so it seemed like a distant dream. And I needed to start supporting myself when I was 18. My parents went into a older age community and I couldn't live with them anymore. So when I was 17, I had to move out on my own and start taking care of myself. So I started working full time and I started taking a class at the local community college though. And anywhere I could, I've been a lifelong learner. And I just kept taking classes while I was working. And I got married and I had a son and and then I was getting promoted into management in my 20s and I kept taking classes. So the reason I took 16 years was because I was just always taking a class. And this was back before online was so prevalent. So then I finally got online classes. When I went to the University of San Francisco, they had a program that I liked. It was organizational behavior and leadership. And I had been in management and I wanted to, and it was global focus. And I really wanted that because I was working with people around the world. I was working, at companies in Silicon Valley. And I later worked at Intel. So these were all companies that had a big global footprint. And they would take me in. And when I transferred in, Michael, I broke the record because I had 11 transcripts because I would take classes wherever I could. And I had this city college, that city college. I had UC Berkeley Extension. I had a couple online, my later master's alma mater, St. Mary's. I did a couple weekend classes there for a unit. I did everything I could.
Amazing. 11 transcripts. I've never heard of such a thing. That's amazing.
My San Francisco intake counselor said, "Well, you broke the record." So
They take your picture, they put it up on the wall, 11 transcripts. You
I
try to
know,
beat
amazing.
that. Something really interesting happened to you that I just found so fascinating. One day you found a microphone that was in your bedroom ceiling, and you realized that there were cyber criminals that had not only hacked into your network, your security system at home, but they had broken into your home and they
Mhm.
had been listening to your most personal moments. Talk to
Yes.
our audience about like what that moment felt like for you and how did you turn that entire episode into a top 10 woman in cybersecurity?
Well, let me give you a little background on that. What had happened was I bought a home with my husband, a second husband. I'd been a single mom for a while and working, and then got remarried. And we bought our home. We'd been renting and looking around. I was new to Silicon Valley. I wanted to see if it's where I wanted to stay. And then we decided to buy. So we purchased a house and then I was at a company that was getting acquired by Intel. So I was super excited. And here I am, Michael. I'm working with the CEO of Intel. We're on a first name basis. We're in these one-on-one meetings. I'm helping him create keynotes for our audience because I was head of marketing at a $2 billion company getting acquired by this, $60 billion, dollar company, and Intel, which was a dream come true. And in the middle of it, I realized, my husband and I realized that we were getting targeted by cyber criminals. And we didn't know exactly what was going on, but we had had our network hacked. So I had a security system which had, which had all kinds of locks on it and was locked down, password protected. I had changed the passcode. It wasn't the one that came with this, when I had it installed, we changed the passcode. It was unique and I did everything right. And yet, things were happening like the door to my office door, which was a separate building, was opened, unlocked at midnight while we were sleeping. And I saw it on the monitor the next day. And I said, well, that's not possible because we were both asleep. So I call the security company. And of course, they're saying, well, then you opened it. And they look at it and they said, oh, well, your husband's phone opened it. And so they're kind of blaming it on like, well, you must have been, maybe you were sleepwalking or something. They're not listening to the fact that something happened and it wasn't us.
Mhm.
Well, we had a hallway monitor of movement, and I could go back and say, no, neither one of us was sleptwalk. And then weird things were happening, but it was all pointing back to there wasn't an intruder; it was one of us. So I, was calling the sheriff, I was calling the FBI. The problem when you're in this situation is that there's a million, you find out you're one in a million people that year filing cyber security problems. And I did not have a smoking gun. I just had this thing happened, and I'm not imminently in danger of murder. And let's face it, law enforcement is overwhelmed. They're wonderful people, but they've got way too much to take care of, and certainly things more immediately pressing than that somebody unlocked my door and we weren't actually hurt. So it was very, it was just very hard, and it went on for a long time. And then there were things happening where it seemed that people knew where we were going and things that we were planning and what we were going to do. And like, how is that happening? And I actually paid to have my car, swept for microphones in my house. And they missed it because it was in the ceiling. And the only way I found it was 2 years later. We were having some attic insulation work done by attic pros. And when they were moving the insulation around, this microphone dropped out of the ceiling. It had been a little dot up in the ceiling, and now there's this wire coming down. And at that point, I have a device, but it's not connected to anything, and so can't find proof of who did it when it happened. And most people are not going to experience that, but I can tell you that when you are hacked and people are, when and you become aware that they can read your emails and you're looking at things, it's really terrifying because, if you're walking down a dark alley and somebody jumps out, you at least know what you're dealing with. They're right there in front of you or right behind you. You're like, I don't know where the enemy is. I don't know. I don't even know why they're doing this to me. And that in itself becomes kind of paralyzing, emotionally and mentally, and you don't know where to turn. Even when I was searching on my phone for the FBI, I'm going to incognito mode going, I don't want them to know I'm calling the FBI field office. So you get paranoid and you're not sure what people can find out about you and not. So that's what happened. And it went on for a long time and it was taking a toll on, and being new at Intel, I didn't want to, try even reach out to people there who, Intel had a whole security division, otherwise known as McAfee. I did not want to be a problem child because I wanted to be kept on after the acquisition. So I'm not getting any help from anything outside, and I'm trying to pretend everything's fine. And that's a mistake. Let me just tell your listeners, trying to just suck it up and move on when you're under attack, that's the time you really need to get help. And I tried to go it alone, and it took a toll on my mental health and ultimately my physical health. And it took a toll on my marriage and my finances. I lost over $250,000 plus $250,000 actual cash. Plus there was lost opportunities from income and things I could have done with that money to, to invest it for nest egg. So, you're talking about upwards of $500,000 and all of that from being targeted by cybercrime. And cybercrime in some form or another happens to 1 million people a year in the US alone.
That is just an unbelievable story. So let's assume for a moment that somebody listening is a victim of a cybercrime because it is something that happens. What should you do first if you're the victim of a cybercrime? And you say it's not to call the authorities.
Yes, and I'm not saying don't call the authorities, but what happens is it's really the first thing you have to do. Step one is get your mindset because I called thinking, oh, they're going to save me. They're going to protect, they're going to make this all right. They're going to make it better. They're going to catch the bad guys. They're going to protect me. And that's not what happens. And when I expected that and I called, the further disappointment and fear and disillusionment that kicks in further kind of paralyzes you and makes you feel hopeless. And so step one is just get your mindset about you've got to reach out to, you've got to do multiple things to stop it and prevent it and recover. And I didn't know that. So when, I even talked, I had the sheriff because I live in a county, not the city, but whether you're talking to the police or the sheriff, so you do call them, but there's two steps to do beforehand. And one is get your mindset right that I'm going to have to make a lot of calls. The second thing is you have to be a squeaky wheel to get help. And so step two is you need to have a friend come in and be your advocate. If you went to your doctor and you found out you had a terminal illness, trying to just do it on your own and think about what you should ask and advocate for yourself is not only hard under the best conditions, but it's almost impossible when you feel kind of victimized or demoralized or hopeless in some way or in any kind of despair. So just like if you're going to your doctor, you want your medical advocate with you. You want the person who's going to say, no, we can't wait 3 months for this test. We've got, and somebody's going to kind of pound the table for you. I would say you need that person helping you with this too, because you're going to be one in a million and you need an advocate. So get a friend to be with you on this, somebody that you know is kind of going to be a pit bull on a bone for you. Pick that friend. And maybe it's even somebody in your sorority or fraternity you don't even like that much, but you know, man, could they get the job done for me? And you ask for their help. Then, third, together, you call law enforcement and you're going to call your local police or sheriff. You're going to call the FBI and talk to their field office. And then you also want to contact the IC3. That's the joint organization between the FBI and what's called the National White Collar Crime Committee or Commission or something. They don't get back to you, but when you file it, if things come about and the people who did this are found and stuff, it can benefit you. You're also just helping other people. So you want to do that. But even when I called the FBI field agent, again, they're fantastic. They're the first responders on the front line of all this type of stuff, but they're overwhelmed. And so they didn't refer me to that. And I learned about it later. So you are going to call law enforcement, but you first have to set your expectations, your mindset for the road ahead, and don't do it alone. Get an advocate friend.
That's really helpful. Now, are there certain safety tips that you think the college student should be aware of when it comes to cybersecurity?
Yes, and I'll kind of tell you what my top three are. One is um, so everybody that's listening is a digital native, right? You grew up with smartphones in your hands, unlike, Michael and I and stuff like that, who are digital immigrants, as we call it. But what I would say is, so um, what you don't, what you aren't used to is thinking about, you're thinking about, I'm going to use Facebook as an example, and you could use any social media or any network, but you've got your friends in there. And so you're going to post things and you're going to share stuff. And you're thinking it's private, but you have to assume that everything you put out there in the cloud at all is not private. Even the photos that you take that you back up on your iCloud or your Google Drive or whatever are not private. And I say this because as I've gotten into cybersecurity, and I know we'll get there in a minute about how that happened, but the more I got to learn, the more I saw what's actually going on behind the scenes. So, like 1/3 of hacks are done by insider threats, which means at a company, it's the subcontractors that they hire, and not uncommonly even in the IT department, because where do hackers go? They dress up like good guys and go into big corporations, and they find ways to get information that they can sell on the dark web and stuff. And so, you know, think of this: you're like at your apartment building, or your apart, or if you're staying off campus, or your fraternity, even the security cameras to protect you. All it takes is one rogue person who has access to the storage to get photos of you to know things. So you have to think of your social media the same way. I had this happen with me. A close friend was hacked in Facebook and didn't know it. And so a hacker got everything that I posted to my friends only. Now, fortunately, I wasn't putting anything in there that I was worried about. I treat my Facebook, even to friends, like it's a public site. So if you do that, you're not going to end up in a world of hurt, because and you're only as safe as the weakest link of your least technical friend, or the one who's most likely to be hacked. So if you assume that you've got hackers seeing everything you post, you just you're not going to post anything that could be used against you.
That's good advice. I like that. Now, I do use Airbnb. I use hotel rooms very often. Is there an easy way for me to spot the spy cam in that room?
Yes, and it's a lot of fun because you get to be like a Mission Impossible spy for 15 minutes. You get to. So what you want to do is you want to use a flashlight and turn off all the lights. And you're going to turn the light on, because what happens is the spy cams are little pinpoints of a reflective lens, and they're super tiny. You can't spot them with a human eye. But because they're a lens, they do reflect light. And this is the free version. You can even use your, um, the you can use the flashlight on your cell phone. But you want to turn off all the lights, and that means also covering or unplugging even the clock that has the green LED or what time or whatever, because you want it pitch black. And then you're going to scan, and any light that's bouncing back to you, is like you're doing your own LiDAR of light, coming back to you. You can also buy, so if there is something there, you want to go investigate it. And usually now here's one thing you can do. Search online for hidden, surveillance devices like you want to buy one. If you really want to learn how to protect yourself from bad guys and their equipment, learn what bad guys do and learn what equipment they use, and then you know what to look for. So you'll find these little things that look like they look like a multi-plug that you put your USB, phone charger into, but
Mhm.
they have a little light and it's a camera and it's got an SD card in it that's recording you, or it's recording on motion sensor when you walk through the room. So if you're walking around naked, you're getting recorded. Um, so you want to and then there's some that are in smoke alarms up on the ceiling. And those have a little light source anyway because they have the green on button. So one of the things you can do, I travel with a little thing of white athletic tape, and you can just tape over it and then take it off before you leave. You can unplug things, but it's fun, pretend you're in your own episode. You're the star in your own Impossible movie, and you got to be, or any spy of your choice, 007 if you want, pick whoever you want. But just you're looking around for that, and what's great about it is it's empowering when you go, oh, I'm checking this out. The third thing you can do is you can buy a device for like 50 to 100 bucks and travel with it, and it's called an RF lens, or it's a lens detector. You can buy it off of Amazon. And if you travel as much as you do, Michael, it's great. And they're really lightweight. You can throw it in your suitcase, and it takes you like 5 minutes to scan a room.
I love it. All right. So now I got to go on Amazon and I got to buy this device because I
There
travel
you,
like all the time. And
there you
who
go.
knows? I mean,
Yes,
who knows what's out there?
yes.
So
And I have
interesting.
I have found them. I have found them
Really?
when traveling. Yeah, and
Oh
I'm
my
like, okay.
gosh.
Hmm.
Oh my
So
gosh.
I
I
like
don't
to
even
tape it. I like to tape it and then leave the tape on stuff. So yeah.
I figured you out. Unbelievable. So you've lived such an interesting life. I mean, you've discovered the 5 simple steps that have transformed your life completely. It's called the CLEAR method, CLEER. What
Yep.
is this method and how exactly does it help you?
Well, so here's what happened. And to finish the story about getting to how did I go from, so I did go from cybercrime victim to top 10 woman in cybersecurity. And it was not an overnight change. It took a few years. But here's what happened. When I was at the lowest point and I had tried everything. When you call the FBI and the sheriff and you're searching online and you're changing your passwords and you're doing everything and you're still being attacked, there's a point at which you think, is this even worth it anymore? Should I just give up? And I was really demoralized. I was like, I don't know if I've got any more fight left in me. But at that same moment, I rallied and I said, no, I'm going to find a way out of this one step at a time. And my motivation at that point was, I'm going to figure out how to recover and how to prevent it. And then I'm going to share it with everybody I know and love. And then I realized I want to share it with the world. And I want to share it with the good. There's far too many cyber criminals, and the rest of us need to learn how to protect ourselves without feeling like we're getting a cybersecurity certification, or starting a career in cybersecurity. So that's what I did, and I started learning it. And through one thing leading to another, I met some top people. I met the former head of security technology at Microsoft itself, former head of the Wall Street trading floor, protecting trillions of dollars on the floor. I met, white hat hackers who are hired by, the Fortune 100s to come in and they're told, pretend, come at us like you're China or Russia and try to get our intellectual property. And they do. They walk in 3 months later dangling, some information they should not have been able to have. And then they tell them how they got in and how to protect, and then they can seal it up. So I've met these people and I started working with them. And I got invited to co-found a cybersecurity company with them, which was named a top 10 startup the year that we launched. And I got named top 10 women in cybersecurity. And I said, and then I'm using that as my platform. And what I did when I reverse engineered, wow, people said, how did you go from being that victim and almost giving up to this? And I reversed engineered it and I realized, oh, I did 5 steps. and I gave it the acronym CLEAR. So C is clarify what you really want. For me, that was I want to feel safe in my home again. I want to secure my perimeter, and I want to know that, I'm not being tormented anymore. If you're in college and you're thinking of your what career you want to go into or what you want to do, it's what do I really want to do? And here's what I encourage. And I'm an executive coach. I work with people who they're at their height of their career, they're a chief officer of something, and they're miserable because they got their degree in what they thought they should get it in, and they squelched the real passion and purpose they felt they had in life, and they're in a depression about it now. So they're making good money, they've got the home, they've got the car, they've got all that stuff, and they're depressed and miserable and or unsatisfied. And so I really go, let's see, what do you really want? And so whether you're, 20 or 40 or 60, you can still start with what does my ideal life look like? And I also say this because as I coach people, even when even when you graduate and you're applying for jobs, by the time you reach, 18, you're already learning how to go for your third, fourth, or 10th choice because we've squelched our first choice. Oh, who am I to want that? Who do, oh, I may not get it. Um, or just, not being selfish and thinking, all the things that help us become good, socially good citizens in the world also can kind of be like, don't really put yourself first. And so this is a good time to put yourself first and just think, what do I really want my life to look? What's my ideal scenario? Take all the what you think can work or not work out of it and put that down there because there's a version of that that can totally work for you or the number one thing. And I want you all, what I want everybody listening to is to think about this. If you went for your first choice, your dream job, let's say you want to work, I don't know, let's say you want to work at, you know, a Hollywood studio, or Pixar and making movies and stuff. Well, if you went for it and you didn't get it, then you're on to a second choice or a plan B, or where else could I do? Maybe I go to Disney, maybe I go, or maybe or go here or go there. But how sad is it that you never do it because you put yourself on the bench. It's
Right.
far better to go for it and learn if you either get it, and I can't tell you how many people I coach that get it and they come and say, "Oh my God, I can't believe it, I got it." And if they don't get that exact thing, they end up they going, "Well, what's something like that in another company? Or what's another, opportunity, or what's something else I could do that's like it?" And then they end up really thrilled. They end up getting something that is very completely aligned with what they wanted, but they didn't know existed. But if you go for your third or fourth, fifth choice, you might actually get it. And then you're going to live with that trajectory for the rest of your life until you make another change.
Mhm. Really good stuff. I like it. Now, you're also a seasoned marketer. I'm wondering, do you have any tips in terms of entrepreneurial college students that might want to start marketing a new product that they're developing or a new service that they are developing? How should they market something like that?
Boy, I sure do. As a head of marketing for 20 years in Silicon Valley, and I've worked with literally hundreds of startup founders, advising them and helping them with their go-to-market strategies.
Mhm.
First thing is, okay, if you have a great idea for a
Mhm.
product or a service or whatever, or an app or something, first take a big piece of paper, like even one of those giant Post-its, or go to a whiteboard and every write down every problem that exists on the right side. Write down every problem that could be solved by your product or service. And then on the left, after you do that, write down who most needs to solve those problems. Because I've worked with far too many founders and companies we call in Silicon Valley, we call it's a product looking for a solution. It's a solution looking, or it's a problem looking for a solution. You have a product looking for a problem, and they haven't really nailed it. And so they end up marketing to the wrong audience. Even in cybersecurity, here's a great example. A lot of cybersecurity companies go after the chief information security officer, but they're not actually, very few of them are actually the leaders spearheading things, they're more the veto or the deciding vote. It's the business leaders, like the CTO, the chief technology officer who's got to overprotect the IP, or the chief financial or legal officer who's actually going to be your internal customer, who's going to be the advocate saying we have to have this. And then your CISO or chief information security officer is the one who's going to be working with the IT team, the CIO, to implement it. But they're not going to be pushing rope uphill necessarily. So you want to think who has the most to lose by not doing this? That's the other thing. Um, Going from good to better is not a great selling point, but going from I've got a problem that's going to cost us too much to stay here. I'm in the fire. I got to jump out. Those are the people who are going to buy. So get really clear on the problem you solve. And then don't talk about your product all the time. Talk about, talk to the person about, so tell me more about the challenge you have. Tell me more about the pain you're feeling, that, have that, and then say, and then paint the picture. Well, what if we could do this for you? And then you've got a captive audience. But most people and leaders and tech founders and company founders lead with their product. Like it's like their baby and they're showing you the pictures. But you don't care about their product until you know that it could solve your problem. So put
Love it.
the steps in the right order.
Yeah, really good methodology. That's awesome. Now, I noticed that in addition to the coaching that you do, you also offer something called neurosculpting services. What
Yes.
is neurosculpting?
So neurosculpting is from the Neurosculpting Institute based in Denver.
Mhm.
And when I was recovering my life, part of what I had to, frankly, what I had to do was change my thinking because I was just so fixated on how bad everything was and negative. And I thought there's got to be a way to help me find something more positive. And I learned a lot about neuroscience, and I learned that our brains are not like concrete and hard once we're grown. They're like Play-Doh, and they're very pliable. And that you can, and if you are whatever habits and self-limiting beliefs you have and habits of thinking, if you're thinking negative or you're thinking fearful thoughts all the time, um, A, it's not because that's the only truth. And B, it's not just because that's the way you are, it's that you've reinforced it. It's like if pumped iron with your right arm all day and did nothing with your left, and you said, well, my right arm's just bigger than my left arm. It's like, well, that's true, but it doesn't mean it has to stay that way. It doesn't mean it has to be that way. So I needed to learn how to how to rewire my brain. And I found the Neurosculpting Institute in Denver, founded by Lisa Wimberger, who's just amazing. She had to rewire her brain or she was going to die because she was having seizures that were leaving her. She was getting, resuscitated by EMTs in front of her child. And she said, I've got to figure this out. And she did. And so it's a five-step method of how to calm down your limbic system, which is where your fight or flight reaction is, and bring your prefrontal cortex, that's your frontal lobe of your brain above your eyes. That's your best thinking. That's the part that can dream big, feels positive, is making the best decisions. It brings that back online because your brain has one fuel pump. You can either feed your fight or flight, brain part of your brain, or you can feed your higher thinking. And this is important too when you're going into taking, final exams or doing things like that. If you find yourself worrying, you can actually change that. And that's what I did. I rewired my brain, and that's what allowed me to do these five steps of recovering my life. So we talked about the clarify what you really want. Then it was like list the things I know I need to do. And then the next E is envision my own success, envision that being true. Because think about it. Have you ever sat at your desk and had a panic attack thinking about something or had your heart? It's
Sure.
not actually happening, is it? You're imagining it. So your brain can't tell the difference between what you're projecting in your head and what you're seeing with your eyes in real life. So when you're projecting positive images of yourself graduating or getting that offer for the job you want or having that, you know, that young man or woman that really like saying, yes to going out with you, or when you envision it first before you take action, you increase your odds of success by 10 to 20 fold, depending on which research you're looking at. So envision your own success, and then you execute. And I recommend you take an action a day. And then guess what? All your fears or self-limiting beliefs will come up. And the R of clear is that you resolve them. So I used rewiring my own brain with neural sculpting to do that. So I kind of weave neural sculpting into my clear method.
Very cool. Well, I have a feeling you're going to get a lot of college students are going to be contacting you for coaching and all other kinds of things because I can see how effective this would be. Now, I know that you live in Palo Alto, which is just a beautiful, beautiful part of the country. My daughter almost went to a university in town. She decided against it and went somewhere else, but I still have relatives that live there, and I try to visit at least once a year. So the next time I'm in town, where should I go for a great bite to eat in Palo Alto, California?
Well, and I love this part of your show, and I've gotten so many great recommendations. I keep adding that next time in this place, I'm going to go here. So I'm going to give you two, depending on two different budgets. One is called Kirk's Steak Burgers. It's across from the high school, and the reason being, and they've got something for everybody. So if you're vegetarian, you can get the Impossible Burger, but they're fresh made to order, but they have the best, burgers, and you can get chicken sandwich with bacon and avocado, but they're fantastic. They're freshly made. They're huge. The high school students across the street go there all the time for lunch. So if you want big portions for a good value, this is the place to go. They've got like 8 versions of fries. They've got steak fries. They've got shoestring onions. They've got all this stuff. So it's just a great place for a great value. And if you want fun, I will say I lived in New Orleans, Louisiana for a year, and I had friends and family there and visited there often as a child. So if you want a little flavor of that, you want to check out NOLA, and it's like for New Orleans, Louisiana, NOLA.
Mm-hmm.
And you feel like you're in the French Quarter. I lived in the French Quarter for a year, and it was fantastic. And it's like better than, so this is like a little taste of an Epcot Center version of that. And they have really great Cajun inspired food. So it's kind of like California cuisine with a Cajun twist and some pure play Cajun food. And that is delicious. And it's just kind of a great experience.
I love it. I am definitely going to check that out. I miss having some New Orleans style Cajun food.
Yeah.
It is definitely one of my favorite types of food, but I can't get it as often as I would like in Tennessee. So anywhere I can get it, I will definitely go and check it out. So I will absolutely hit that up and I will let you know what I think as soon as
Yay,
I'm in
please do.
town.
Awesome.
So
Thank you.
that sounds really good. All right. So if our listeners, if they want to book you as a speaker on their college campus, maybe they want to hire you for some coaching, neurosculpting services, you name it, where should they go to connect with you?
So you're going to go to jocelynking.com, JOCELYNKING.com. And I have a speakers tab there where you can book a 20-minute consultation. But I also offer a ton of free resources. So I have some higher cost programs for protecting yourself online. I'm offering free master classes that you can join just to get some basics. These are like 3-hour classes that I offer periodically. I've got one coming up, in October. October is National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. You can also follow me on social, but I'm also really just starting to ramp up on YouTube videos with helpful hints. I'm dropping a video a day for 31 days in October for National Cyber Awareness Month, giving you the tips and hacks that you need to learn about how cyber criminals work and things to do to protect yourself online. And you can subscribe to get tips. So come in for any and all. So I do both. I teach online safety so that you don't have to learn cybersecurity unless you want to. And I teach people how to get from where they are to where they want to be, because that's what I did to become a top 10 woman in cybersecurity myself.
I love it. Jocelyn King, the queen of online safety. Well done today. Some great information. Everyone's going to go and check out your YouTube channel and those 31 videos you're going to be putting out in the month of October. That is absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for spending time with us today.
Thank you.
All right. And to our listeners, if you enjoyed this conversation with Jocelyn, I want you to like it and I want you to share it with other college students that need her help and her tips. And we will see you on the next episode of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.